Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today the shred of wisdom that I want to share with you is that still waters run deep, or quiet waters run deep. It's a saying, I don't know if you've ever heard it, but my dad likes to use it, and I wanted to talk about it. So basically the center idea of this old wives' tale, this saying, however you want to say it, is that, just because someone isn't loud and braggadocious and in your face and constantly like yelling and talking and screaming, doesn't mean that, these quiet people are shallow or insignificant or irrelevant. It often means like the opposite of that. It means that these people are typically the quiet, introspective people. Maybe it's a grandparent who comes over to visit and doesn't say a whole lot, and you kind of just wonder, like, what is your life like? What have you been? And oftentimes the loud people tend to dismiss these quiet people. As a kid, I actually envied them. I really wished when I was a kid that I would be this like quiet, introspective guy. And I think that was largely from TV shows and movies where the quiet kid has always got like a lot going on, and there's like this deeper meaning. If you've ever watched Twilight, it's kind of like that, where, Bella, the main character, is really enamored by Edward, the secret vampire. And as the movie goes on, you find out that he actually has this incredible backstory and this like larger than life personality, but he's very soft-spoken and quiet. And I don't know, as a kid, I always kind of envied that because I was always kind of the loud mouth. People often dismissed me because I was so loud. And this saying kind of encapsulates my attraction to this like quiet, soft-spoken person in the corner, just taking everything in. But in my experience, it's quite true. If you're ever at a party or something, try and find the quietest person there and start talking to them, because they usually have such an interesting story. They usually know everything. They know the drama, they know the situation, because a lot of people discount them. A lot of people just ignore them or pretend that they're invisible. And oftentimes things are said in their presence that is interesting, to say the least. But quiet waters, they are quite deep. And I think that's true for people. I think we have this innate ability to pick things up on and pick up on things when you least expect them and when you're not really hunting for them or things like that. As you guys know, I'm quite fascinated by wisdom and acquiring wisdom and how people perceive it. And I think more often than not, we perceive quiet people as, just shy or unassuming, uninteresting. But if you look at film and literature and television, a lot of that is created by people who are very extroverted. These people are very gung-ho, and they're very happy to crash into a party, and they want to make a big entrance. And these people tend to write and play characters about themselves. They tend to write and be and embody these loud, larger than life figures. And no matter who you are, it really doesn't define you. But the point of this video is to talk about the people who we meet who don't want to sit in the center of a room. They want to sit at the back of the class. They want to kind of be left alone, and they don't really want a spotlight on them. They don't want to be talking in front of a camera. They don't want to have like a huge social media presence. And I have to say, a lot of my friends fit this characteristic pretty well. And I think it's kind of funny that I do this for a career, and they are super quiet, and they've personally asked me, like, please don't include me in any videos, and that's totally fine with me. But these are very quiet, reserved people, And yet their water is so deep. You know, they aren't shallow people. These are very introspective, very thoughtful, very caring individuals. But I'm sure a lot of people looking on the outside at my friends think like, "Ugh, what a quiet, boring person. Like, I don't even want to talk to this person. I just want to avoid them as much as I can." And that's a real shame, because if you're only ever hanging out with people like you, maybe you're extroverted, maybe you're introverted, maybe you're a quiet, back of the class kind of person, maybe you're a class president, put me at the front, I want to change the world. Awesome. But if you're only hanging out with your kind of people, you're missing out on a huge amount of human experience and how people see the world differently, a different perspective. And now more than ever, I think you should really embrace different perspectives and think about people from different angles, different situations. That's truly what wisdom is, by the way. It's being able to see things not just as they appear to be, but looking at the whole context, looking how they were created and made and shaped and altered. So the next time you see a quiet person, you don't necessarily have to go up to them and be like, "Hey, tell me everything, tell me your secrets," because they'll probably run away. But what you can do is maybe sit down and have a quiet conversation, or ask for their name and, see how it goes. And I'm sure you have people in your life who you maybe associate with this quiet, introverted, still water, but perhaps they're much deeper than you think. One of my grandmothers has always been a very quiet, unassuming person, and she's married to one of the most extroverted people I know. My grandfather is very, very extroverted, and I've always wondered like kind of how that works. And unfortunately, the only times that I really get to truly talk to her is when it's just me and her. She kind of has this like quiet, reserved wisdom, and it's really hard to actually get her to talk about it, because she doesn't like talking about herself. She doesn't like talking about anything related to herself. And it's not something that she screams from the rooftops or she wants people to know about her. She's just very quiet and unassuming, and she takes in everything. She never forgets a thing. And so she's probably got so much to teach us, but she's the kind of person that feels like teaching someone that would come off as like condescending. And so it's a real shame that these quiet people aren't prepared or willing to share their opinions freely, because they're just like, I don't need the heat, I don't need the drama. I know the way that the world works. I don't need to be teaching it to anybody. Who am I to teach? Which is the exact kind of person we need in society right now. We need someone who is willing to say, you know what, like, I don't like this situation or this particular like situation, and I'm gonna fix it. And a quiet person, one of these quiet, wise, still water people, that's like the last thing on their mind. They're like, nah, that's not for me. I'm not qualified. I can't do it. When in fact they absolutely can. And it goes back to a saying where, and I can't remember the context of this, so apologies, but the best leader for a country is the one who doesn't want it. And that's true. With becoming prime minister or president or chancellor of a country, typically that takes a lot of braggadocious, self-entitled worth in order to run for that kind of position. And then you have to play politics, and you have to scratch someone's back so they scratch yours. And I think wise human beings are actively discouraged from running for things like this, which is really screwed up and very unfortunate, because you would think you'd want like a wise person who understands life and has compassion and empathy. But unfortunately, we're stuck with the rushing water people and not the still water people. So that's a shame, but that's my take on an old saying, still water runs deep. Let me know what you think. I think it's kind of an interesting thing. My dad said it forever, and it wasn't until I really looked into it and looked at like, why do we say that it came to this conclusion that things are deeper than their surface might suggest. Sometimes a puddle is actually a giant 50-foot wormhole. And sometimes a big lake is this deep. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.